Hello, I'm Jess Feuston, and I'm presenting work on behalf of myself and my co-authors Alex Taylor and Anne-Marie Piper. Content warning, in this video I do mention eating disorders and self-harm. So content moderation is really integral to what platforms like Instagram and Reddit do, and our aim isn't to argue that it isn't. However, we want to talk about the flip side. What is it like for people with eating disorders when their content and communities are moderated? Asking this question is important because certain content related to eating disorders is frequently flagged and removed from online spaces because it's viewed as causing harm or glorifying eating disorders. However, we don't know enough about this practice from the perspective of people with eating disorders who are having content removed, and we don't know how content moderation impacts them and their experiences with illness and disability. To be clear, when I'm talking about content moderation, I mean flagging and reporting content, removing content from an online space, sending emails to let people know that content has been reported or removed, and also sending support resources when reporting or removing content. To understand how people with eating disorders are impacted by content moderation, we drew from a now 3-year digital ethnography of how people with mental illness and specifically eating disorders participate online. And this involves online observation and interviews. For our online observation of the posts that we saved explicitly to spreadsheets, about 6,000 came from Instagram, 208 from Reddit, and 160 from Tumblr. The Instagram dataset involves more than just posts related to content moderation, whereas the content collected from Reddit and Tumblr are specific to content moderation and to people with eating disorders. We also interviewed 20 adults with eating disorders. Our participants had many different experiences, including binge eating and anorexia, as well as seeking diagnosis and treatments or not. When we started analysis, one of the first things that we noticed is that content moderation is actually a form of loss for the people who experience it. This loss involves loss of personal voice, loss of a personal diary, and also loss of community. In our interviews, we had a participant who talked about the resources, including harm reduction and recovery support that had been cultivated and crowdsourced on an eating disorder support community on Reddit. However, this community was deleted by Reddit. And when that subreddit was deleted, all of that good, helpful content that our participant described was removed and ultimately lost. As you can imagine, content moderation can be very distressing. Sometimes online spaces are the only places people feel comfortable talking about their experiences with eating disorders. So losing accounts and communities can lead to social isolation. It may also lead to more risky or unsafe practices, such as purging and other practices of self-harm. We need to consider that content moderation, even though it's done for good, may actually be putting people's health at risk. Important to note also is that moderation of content related to eating disorders often involves messages of help. These messages, like links to the National Eating Disorder Association helpline, are meant to support people with eating disorders. However, we spoke with individuals who did not feel like these resources were helpful or meaningful for where they were at with their eating disorder. Some participants even felt excluded by these messages. For example, as one of our participants shared, whenever she gets sent a helpline, she doesn't feel like people are reaching out to offer help. She feels like people are saying to her, "Now please, go away. Stop having an eating disorder." But of course, that's not how any of this works. What we can take away from all of this is that good intentions, like content moderation, like sending support resources, can be harmful and unhelpful for certain people, even when we don't mean for them to be. So in the context of eating disorders then, what can we do? In the paper, we talk about a few ways to revisit systems of platform moderation. Here I'll talk about 2. First, we can aim to support people where they're at, including when people may be working through recovery or not ready to recover. This might look like sharing resources that are meaningful and helpful based on a specific individual's experience. Second, people with eating disorders already have ways of coexisting and collectively supporting one another. We talk about this in the paper when we address content warnings, for example. It's important that we listen and learn from community practices. This means designing systems with people with eating disorders rather than for them. Thank you for listening. Please reach out with any questions.